Hi, just doing an impromptu video here. Wanted to be somewhere quiet. I'm in a bit of a noisy house with them children running around and stuff. But it just started raining pretty hard, and even some thunder, which I love. If I had a place to sit out in the shelter, um, that would be nice. But it's still a nice backdrop here, lots of green. So, I was just watching a video from Anna Runkle, the crappy childhood fairy, whom I love. I really think she's really great. I love her message. I don't watch a lot of her videos, but I am subscribed and I get the notifications. And I have to say, like, there are videos I've listened to, but every headline I read from her, it always just speaks to me like 100%. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what she's talking about. I mean, some more than others, but basically. And I really think Anna Runkle understands, CPTSD, or however you want to define these things. I've been working on my own theories and, my like a unified theory of narcissism, CPST, trauma, all these things, abuse, dysfunction, everything. I'm trying to unify it because I feel like there's been so much talk about it these days. Narcissism and abusive relationships and all this stuff, and I think there's been a lot of good work, but I think some of it is a bit misdirected. I think some of it is mislabeled, misunderstood, and I'm trying to unify it so we can really understand it cohesively, clearly, and completely, so we can really get to the bottom of it and know for sure what it is, and therefore how to deal with it. Hopefully how to avoid it in the first place where possible, and how to deal with it in ourselves. These days I tend to think that the whole society is under the effects, more or less, of, call it whatever you want, CPTSD. Obviously not always childhood, but just like trauma, narcissistic trauma, whatever you want to call it. Hi, I'm recording a video, okay? I need to just talk. I'm gonna have to restart this, so please, can you just let me record this?
Can I record one, maybe?
No, I need to just be alone to talk.
Okay.
Do you understand? Can you please close the door? Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. Okay, close it. Thank you. So, where was I saying? Yeah, I think so, and particularly in the last 3 years with the mandates, I believe absolutely that that's essentially a satanic trauma, ritual, and it causes the same effects of childhood trauma. I just think probably the childhood trauma, I think, is most likely the most pronounced. The easiest, sad to say it like that, way to do it, because we're the most vulnerable as children, right? And but I think that I don't think it's exclusive to childhood though. I think abuse and trauma, and whether I call it, I'm working on how to unify these things, but whether I call it the narcissistic split of yourself, of your mind, like the satanic indwelling of evil spirits, almost like taking over. It's like the life, the evil spirits seem to take a life of their own in your psyche, in your mind, in your thoughts, able to influence your behaviors. But really, it's in the air, right? Like the devil's the prince of the air, and it's like just thoughts and perceptions and visions and imagery. And all these things they can have such a profound impact that it can manifest into the way you act and the way you behave, and so we can say the way society behaves, and so these are part of the theories I'm working on. Is what exactly is this thing? I'm leaning more towards that it's like, what if you believe in evil power or any type of evil entity or something like this? I do. But I'm working on a theory of whether or not, like, the fact that we give into it almost gives it life, creates this demon, creates this evil spirit, because it's like the more afraid you are of something, and it's not, fear is such a simple, kind of simplistic word to use, but the more you give power and life to these fears, to, if there's a devil, if there's these evil things, that they take like a life out of it, and begin to almost like indwell, right, and make you do things, lead you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, that in your heart, the inner child, the real you, the authentic you, however you want to say it, would never do these things. And I've done many things where in my mind, and I believe it's the real Aaron, the real self, was even, was saying adamantly, or even yelling against me, like, don't do it, what are you doing, stop, like, just go home, just do this, like, don't do this. But then I found myself almost sleepwalking and doing it anyway, and I had to ask myself recently, I was like, well, I'm trying to analyze, well, why am I doing this thing that I don't want to do? And I'm yelling at myself in my mind, don't do it. And my answer was, well, I think it's like a survival thing. It feels like life or death. And when you feel like it's survival, you do it. You're gonna do it, right? Regardless of what you think, because that's how powerful it is. And the fear that has been created and you've kind of given into, and it's been foisted as well and shaped. I think there's like a, I don't know if I'd say a duality, but like a dual effect of like you giving power to it by being afraid of it, by having self-doubt and fear about the future and yourself and about others and all these things, and hurt and pain about the mistakes you've made. I think that gives power to it, but there also seems to be like a separate entity, if that's the devil, spirits, demons, other people, I don't know, just like influences. We know that there's power and energy in the air, and everything affects, there's a powerful influence, much of which is invisible, or at least some of which. So really recently I've been having thoughts about these theories, but the particular thoughts are that I've been thinking lately that what this is really self-doubt, or not even just self-doubt, but more so the root is like going against your true self. It feels like when because like everything else outside of you, I've been talking and thinking with others and myself about like integrity, authenticity, and these are all related subjects, and how to be your true self, your real self, how to act with integrity according to who you are, your morals, your virtues, your values. And regardless of whether or not you're intoxicated, inebriated, under distress or anything, will you act according to who you really are, what you really value, what you think, what you want, your love, your care, or your hate for yourself or others. And I think that I've been thinking that it comes down to like your own integrity with yourself. It's like, how can you have integrity with others if you don't have it with yourself? And I was thinking that if you don't listen and act accordingly to your true self, like in that example of me saying like, don't do it, Aaron, and I do it anyway, even though I'm acting out of this like fear, and you could kind of justify it or feel like a victim or whatever, but really I think I'm being a hypocrite. I'm being a hypocrite to not heed my real voice, who I really am. And it's like, and if I'm a hypocrite of my own self, I cannot trust myself. And to me, that's a very quicksand, watery foundation of everything else in life. How are you going to face the world, the struggles of just survival in the purest sense, but also the conflicts with other people, right? Relationships, work, your goals, your ambitions, And then your own self, just feeling identity, confidence, self-esteem, mastery, just all these things. All that can't really work if you're a hypocrite of your own self, right? By saying, this is who I think I am, this is what I believe, but then you don't do it. And so you won't trust yourself. And I believe that that's going to be a chain reaction. Now, I'm working on these theories, that will chain react out to cause you to do many other things, that are harmful, self-destructive, and harmful towards others as well. And I don't think that's your intention to do it. I think it's a chain reaction of fear. And I don't think it's the real you, not the real me. And I've questioned and had many tears about those things. Who is the real Aaron? Am I a bad person? Do I really want to do these bad things? Who am I? And I think that anyone with this, this narcissistic fracture, these doubts and these fears that are preyed upon there, I think we all have those questions. At least if we're able to have any sort of self-reflection at all, or self-awareness, or of kind of some of these dynamics and what's going on. So I'm going to keep working on these. I know it's hard for me to be short-winded as always. But I think that there's really something there. Because I really think that, that Anna Runkle, for example, that CPSD and these type of words, the nomenclature of dysregulation, I think they're great words and they've helped me, but I still think that they fall short of capturing the simplistic, pure essence that will be easy to understand and act upon, right? Because when you have all these strange lingo about things, they give you glimpses and gleanings, but it can be hard to maintain because it'll be easy to get distracted by different theories and like the whole narcissism thing. I hope this rain's not too loud, but I think it's beautiful. I love rain, and a nice rain. Late summer rain, so it's kind of cold. Get a little wet there, but and a nice moment of silence is so beautiful. And you know why, I think? Because it allows you to come back to yourself. And what I would also now say is to God. I think that the self is God. If you love God, it's because you came from God. And when you're coming to yourself, you're really coming to God. It's the same thing, right? In the stillness. Be still and know that I am God. I think it's the same thing, right? Obviously, I'm not saying I'm in the flesh God. I'm just a flesh man. But the real Aaron, the real you, if you love God, somewhere in your heart, then that's the real you, and that's God. That part of you come from God. And if it come from God, it is God. And that's why a moment of silence is so powerful and beautiful. To me, when things get stressful, when people get dysregulated, when there's any sort of emergency, when there's a bunch of hurt feelings, children, adults, family, whatever, one of the most powerful things, and honestly pleasurable things, is just to be silent. I feel like it just tears away and dispels so much of the panic and the issues in those moments. And I know why now, but I believe. So, trying to lock it in for you guys, for me as well, to understand the core, I think, is like being that hypocrite of your own self, because it makes you can't trust yourself, right? You won't trust God's word, you won't trust God, you won't trust yourself, your sovereign ability to make choices, to be who you are, to stand up for virtue, your morals, your values, your self-defense, your autonomy, your your ambitions, your drives, your goals, and then thereby also others, to stand up for others and to really authentically hear others and assist and help them and guide people and all that stuff. I think the entire foundation is wrong and shaky if you're under being a hypocrite. I don't know if there's a better word for it. It's a bit biting, and I think biting is good because it's got to shake you out of what you're doing. And it's not a bite against you, because really it's biting to say, like, so much of our opinions and our actions and things are like judging ourselves, judging others, judging the world, judging, just everything. That business, how they run their shop, your boss and everything. It's like judgment, judgment, judgment. And how can you judge correctly anything if you're not even correctly judging yourself and acting and living in line with yourself? If you're being a hypocrite, if you're acting against your own thoughts, your own self, your own value. So I don't mean that in some malicious, sinister way, but I think that's the key. I think that's the key. And I would say absolutely, like, prayer and religious practices and things, anything that is going to help center you to God consciousness, God vibration, God, and yourself, and that connection, I think, and hopefully not practices that open you up to, I don't know, to bad things, but in those ways, to the good ways, to God, those practices I think are good. And that's why so many people practice them, and going out to nature, because it gives you peace. You connect with God, you connect with the frequencies, and you get to connect with yourself, and rediscover and re-hone in on who you are and what's important to you and how you're going to live true to that. So I think that that's so important, and I think that we need to really pare down, shear away everything, every decision you make that goes against what you really want, who you really are, what you really think, is going to chip away in a big way at that foundation of, like, being a hypocrite, being unstable, not trusting yourself, and sending you down a wayward path of neediness. You're going to have needs that you won't be able to fulfill. How can you fulfill your own need? You're actually throwing it away. You're giving it away. You're toppling it over by going against yourself, by going against the real you. And when I believe God's desired thoughts for you, they will align. I believe it's the same, really. I mean, we have our individual preferences as people. We all have our personalities, and that's fine. So it's not about that so much, but I believe that it's in alignment. God's love for you, God's power, His presence in the world. His control and His power is. It says so many times in the Bible that it's about, like, it confounds the wise and the prudent, and, like, people are ever learning but yet never able to arrive at the knowledge of the truth. And there's all these scriptures and lessons. It's all throughout the Bible. I think 98% of the Bible is basically this, is that it's not about worldly success and worldly accomplishments and achievements, but it's about, like, God consciousness and that self-sacrifice or whatever. Although I don't really think that it is self-sacrifice. I think it's more like discipline and just being centered. It's more like not dipping your toes into things that may be tempting, definitely appear to be profitable or pleasurable, and they may really seem to be that, no matter how much it is, whether it's money or physical pleasure or anything else. But when those things contradict and conflict God values, God consciousness, God life, love, which I think in turn is your love, your life, then it's going to lead down a bad path, and they're not really profitable. They're not, that's why the Bible says, I think, all is vanity. All is vanity, right? Because that's true. I mean, being in tune with source life, the creator, what made your heart, keeps your heart beating, and your nostrils breathing, and brought you here, all that. What could be more important than that, right? Everything else stems from that. And so just the last couple days, I've really been thinking, okay, like, this is time. It's time, Aaron, to stop these things. I've been going down paths, which, and I've been questioning, oh, are they in tune with myself? Who am I really? But I think the real me knows. I think I do know, and I've been lost. I've been misled. I've been in a maze. It's like a hedge maze, and like a shopping mall maze. There's lots of left turns and right turns, and all these boutiques and shops and people to sell you the wares, but really everything's like a grift in life. Like in the truth movements I've been in the protests, it's become, I suppose, more popular increasingly to be like, oh, everything's a grift. These people are all grifters. And you know what I've been thinking lately? I think almost everything in this whole world is a grift. Like, honestly, everything. Like, everything. A doctor, if he gets paid $300,000 a year and has this high status of esteem in the community and all this money and prestige and power, but really, he's just another human being. And what? He looks up in his big fat textbooks, reference books about different diseases and sicknesses, and he's got all of his equipment and tools and medications. But, like, we could use that stuff. Like, there's many among us who aren't doctors who are well qualified to do that same thing. And like, it's absurd, really. Like, it's a grift, really. Like, it's all a grift, right? That's what, like, capitalism is a grift. It's like how to be the best grifter. I mean, at least it's, maybe it's been better in the older days, but it's only gotten worse and worse and worse. Like, with the inflation, with the increase of bureaucracies and rules and taxation, and everything is getting tighter and more stringent, away from God, away from natural life, into a technocratic, satanic control matrix. It's all getting away from God, and the more it gets in that direction, the more I think everything is a grift. A real estate agent, who the heck are they? Just some person to sell your house? Like, what do they even do? Like, and they're making all this money. Are they more capable than me? Are they more intelligent than me or anybody else when I'm a poor guy who makes, like, no money? No, absolutely they're not. They're not. They're just playing the game in this world. It's a game, and it's a game that I don't play. I don't play it. And, so I understand I've tried playing the game. We all try, and some people are better at it. You're born into it. There's so many reasons to get into for those things, but really, I think it's all a grift. That's why in the Bible the apostles and prophets are instructed to go and preach, and, like, not, they're not there to work and make money or whatever. They go based on donations and charity, and have people just, like, house them for a night, and feed them for a night. And that's, like, you're supposed to do that. Why? It makes sense. Like, scientifically, that makes sense. Philosophically, it makes sense. Psychologically, it makes sense that to maintain that God consciousness and their integrity with God, right, and themselves in alignment with God, they go and take donations, and they allow people and allow God to provide for them. And I feel like Yeah, so there's a wisdom. There's a wisdom there. There's so many simple things that we overlook. And but this world is heading to to major disaster of epic, biblical proportions upon everyone, and no one's going to escape. If there's any escape at all, it's through God, and that's it. And that's what the Bible said. And how can we see any different, guys? We know when we look around what's happening. And so I think, the whole narcissism thing, I think that those are misnomers. I think that they're mislabels. I think that it's truly misunderstanding. People, as I've said, have done, I would say, great work in pushing those understandings, to give them labels, to flesh out these ideas and concepts. And maybe it's not necessary, but obviously it is, because it's happening. And I think that there's value and use there, at least in the sense that we're all fraught with intellectualism and information, and trying to intellectually understand everything, even though that's not really the key, I think, to most things. I think being heart-centered and God-centered, that doesn't have maybe anything to do with intellectualism, being intelligent and referencing a bunch of data on the internet and all that stuff. So I think it's useful in the day and age for fighting and understanding the things that we're struggling with, these specifics. But I think we have to go further. I think there's more to it. I think there's a clearer picture to be had. Some of the faults with the narcissism thing is the pointing the blame. A lot of it is pointing the finger, and we get this whole thing of anyone who hurts us, or we feel hurt by, or whatever, exactly. It's like, oh, narcissist, and that's never a good game to play. It's never a good way to be living life, I think. We should always be looking within. We should be looking to God, looking at ourselves. If we act with not as hypocrites, but we act with integrity, we act in God consciousness, we won't be caught up in those problems to begin with. We won't, right? And so I won't even have to label you a narcissist. That's between you and God. I'm going to stay centered, and I'm going to go and do better choices, better living, because I'm centered. I'm healthy. I am, powerful. I'm loving. I'm not going to get caught up in those things. So, and the people who are doing those, whether or not some people are children of the devil, well, the Bible says so, and some people are children of God. It's hard for me to say that conclusively. The Bible does say that conclusively, and I'm sure people will say that that's controversial, but to me, it's conclusive in the Bible. Can I personally say that? I find it difficult because I'm just such a flawed human, and I have all these doubts, and you know what I mean. So it's hard for me to even say that. But I see that the Bible says it, and I believe I love God, and when I listen to what I think is the real Aaron, because it can be confusing to know, I think, what voice in your head, who is the real you. For me, it's hard. And I think the greater the fracture, the greater the narcissistic split, the traumatic split, the indwelling of spirits, the efficaciousness of the devil's, treachery and lies, the manipulation, that's all. I think that creates stronger voices in your head and stronger splits. And I think you can even have multiple splits, like multiple personality disorder. I think that the whole society is becoming more split, and I have a stronger split. That's what I call it. I'll always evolve my terms when I can come up with something that's unified, clear, and whole. But I would say that I have a stronger split than the majority of people, than most people. But I'm a far cry from some people. So and I know that God can use the bad things for the good. He is able to. And I know that confounds us. We don't understand, because we're always, in our simplistic little human thing, we're always just like, well, why doesn't God just make everything nice? Just make it all nice. Well, I think if God is in you, you already know the answer, that it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. just making paradise. It's not even paradise. It isn't, because you wouldn't know paradise, right? And God can't force you. He can't really have a relationship with you if you're just in a, lobotomized relationship with him where it's just, you know what I mean? Like, where there's no choice and there's no liberty, and you don't know the difference of life away from God, death and all that. So none of it makes sense, and that's tragic and horrible. And I know people will be like, okay, well, you could make a trial of life without having children going through horrific things. And I sympathize with that, or I have compassion for that, whatever the word is, because obviously, like, there's intensely grotesque things in this world that would boggle the minds of most people. And by all accounts, I don't want that to exist, and I don't think God wants it to exist. I don't know how that works. I don't think so. No, I think he's grieved. I think God is grieved, probably more than we're grieved. Like, he's God. God is perfect, right? He's the power source behind everything. It's like a parent letting their child make a mistake, and it already hurts you. You know that it's gonna hurt. The old saying, and it hurts me more than it hurts you, to spank your child or whatever. But it's like, I think that's true. I think God's grieved more than we are, and I mean, to me, that's just like arrogant and foolish to think that we could do a better job. We understand, yet we're not fixing everything. So it's like to blame God, but well, have we fixed everything? So, like, does that even make sense? Well, where's God? How did he make it like this? He shouldn't have allowed children to be hurt. He could have, everything else is fine. You can allow robberies, and adults, well, just do whatever you want to adults, but leave the children alone. To me, I think it's just like I said, it's foolish, it's hypocritical, it's misunderstanding, right? We haven't fixed the problem. I don't think we can fix the problem. God can, the one who created us, and he's in our hearts, and we need to be focused on him. And I'm speaking of myself. The last couple of days, I've been going through this kind of experience of, like, trying to stay centered and doing what I know to be right, what I think. So, and it's been quite powerful. Hey, what does a couple days mean? Yeah, I know, but gotta start somewhere. If I'm gonna have a turnaround, where's my reversal? I have the trend line going up. The trend line's been going down for years, for a good 3 years now, and hopefully the reversal, the true reversal, is to have the parabolic move